What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video. And, given that my last video covered IOC format, which was the unlimited format for Chaos, I figured I'd keep up that trend and actually revisit an unlimited format that I sort of just dismissed out of hand when I first talked about it, and that is DCR format. Now, if you haven't seen my video on DCR format, it's basically vampire format, but, without the limit list for vampire format, using the November 2003 limit list and the cards from Dark Crisis. Now, I made a video basically saying I don't really think this changes much. Vampire Lord's at 3 copies, but Zombies is not really that good of a deck anyways. Reflect Bounder's at 3, but I don't think it really helps out burn too much. And you can watch that video just to sort of see my reasoning more in full. And so I sort of looked at the rest of the cards in the set, that might have gotten limited, and I was like, well, things aren't really too different here. But some people pointed out to me that there actually is one card that might make the format relatively different from Vampire format, and that's Infernal Queen Archfiend. Now, initially, when this card was released, its text was unerrated, so basically, its text was sort of misprinted. Not really like an Android format misprinting, but basically it allowed you to sort of keep the attack boost that it gains every turn. Now, if you've never read Infernal Queen Archfiend, I don't blame you. It's a very obscure card, so let's go through it together. It's a 900 attack point monster at level 4. It says once per turn during your standby phase, you must pay 500 life points. That's not optional, or this card is destroyed. When resolving an opponent's card effect that targets this card, roll a 6-sided die, and negate that effect if you roll a 2 or 5, and if you do destroy that card. The important thing is, it says once per turn during the standby phase, target one Archfiend monster on the field. It gains 1,000 attack. And then this last part until the end of the turn is not there on the original printing of the card, so it just gains 1,000 attack, and that is a permanent buff in DCR format. Now, in Vampire format, this is not the case, but in DCR format, since we go by the rulings at that time, that would be the case here. And given this card can jump up to really absurd heights. For instance, you summon it out, it's only 900 the turn you summon it, but then on your opponent's turn it's 1900, which can be annoying for them to deal with. Then on your turn it's 2900, so that's pretty good. And it's all just one monster on field, so that is a pretty tempting monster to try and play and break in this format. So that's what I sort of decided to do. I wanted to see if this card, having this effect, actually shifted the format too much from Vampire format and made it sort of its own sort of special, unique thing. So I built this deck just as a tester. It's basically just, sort of like a typical aggressive Vampire format deck. It's on the Triple Warrior ladies. It's playing the Spies, which I've seen more play recently. It's got Breaker Tribe, Witch, Sangan, searching out everything that we might need. Exiled Forest, Injection Fairy Lily, Scientist, a Serpent, and that's it for the monsters. But pretty standard monster lineup for the spells. The spells and the traps are basically the same as a typical Vampire format list. Change of Heart, Confiscation, Dark Hold, Liquid Duo, Graceful Charity, Harvey Feather Duster, Mirage of Nightmare, Monster Reborn, Triple MST, Painful Choice, Pot of Greed, Raigeki, Forceful Sentry, Call of the Haunted, Imperial Order, Mirror Force, Ring of Destruction, and Triple Torrential Tribute. That is sort of like a pretty standard lineup overall for the spells and traps that you play. The big thing here is that I'm just playing Infernal Queen Archfiends over some other monsters that you might see, things like maybe Zambira, if that's getting played. Also, we're not playing Rhoda in this deck, even though we are playing 4 Warriors, because, we just needed the space to fit the Infernal Queens. So I'm curious to see how Infernal Queen will actually do in this format, in this sort of deck, as just an auxiliary beater. If you want to sort of play this format for yourself, maybe 3 copies of Infernal Queen is too much. But, I'm trying to test the limits of this card. I want to see as much as possible in these games to see if it's actually good or not. And so that's why I'm playing 3 copies of it. The side deck isn't really that important here. It's, just Jinzo, Heavy Storm, Double Noman Crossout, Double Poison the Old Man, Snatch Steal, Double Dust Tornado, Triple Royal Decree, and then Triple Sakus. Most of this stuff is in here for more cheesy decks, like more back row heavy decks, more flip focus decks. The Sacred of Armor is here for against more aggressive decks. But Sacred of Armor may be a bit worse in this format, given Infernal Queen Archfiend's targeting negation effect, which isn't a guaranteed negation, but it can occasionally happen, so it makes Sacred of Armor a bit worse. But the Fusion deck is also just, sort of a typical Scientist toolbox thing. You got Triple Dark Bolter, Dark Flare Knight, Dark Fire Dragon, Dragon into the Wicked Knight, Fiend Skull Dragon, Reaper on the Nightmare, Ryu Sentry, Super Robo Lady, Super Robo Yaru, Lost Word from Another Planet. Can't bring out on Scientist, but, can maybe come up. I don't know necessarily how, but, it's good to have in the Fusion deck anyways. And triple Thousand Eyes Restrict. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. I'm excited to dive into the game, see how Infernal Queen Archfiend. I keep messing up that name. I'm excited to see how Infernal Queen Archfiend does. So without further ado, let's dive into the games. Okay, we got a game against Dump Truck here. We are going to win the rock, paper, scissors, so we do indeed go first here. So hopefully this will help us out. We have a pretty good opener. We got Fiber Jar, so that can sort of insulate us a bit against if our opponent sort of gets too much advantage on us. And we've got the Infernal Queen Archfiend, of course. So we're going to bring out that Infernal Queen, set IO, set MST, pass back to our opponent. The Infernal Queen will go up to 19 on attack during our opponent's turn. And I figured this is good enough because we don't want to set the Fiber Jar. I mean, we could have set the Fiber Jar turn 1, I guess, but like we don't necessarily want to do that since we do have decent aggressive pressure here, so we can get in a fair bit of damage before we go for Fiber Jar. And we don't really want to bring out Tribe because we want to get more value off Tribe popping a card. So I think that Infernal Queen is the best monster to bring out here. It goes up to 1900. That's hard for them to beat. They go for Painful. We've got Io, so that's fine. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. And we actually have a choice here. We could have potentially let the IO lapse and then gone for Change of Heart, getting really aggressive, attacking in for a ton of damage. Also MSTing their back row. So we could have gone for that, especially given we've got this Fiber Jar as follow-up later. But I feel like, Infernal Queen is a very annoying monster to deal with if you don't have access to spells. So my idea here was like, I'm just going to sit on this Infernal Queen. The only thing that really deals with it is Mirror Force. Ring can potentially deal with it. But, given the targeting effect, you might not want to go for a ring on it. And if we sort of play around TT as well, then that will work out too. Now, we do indeed summon out a monster here. We bring out the DD War Lady here. If they've got TT, they've got TT. Then we can go for Fiber Jar later, or we can go for Tribe on the following turn. But I feel like this is ultimately fine to do. If they've got TT, they've got to blow up their own monster as well. And if it's Sangan or Witch, then that's unfortunate for us. But at least we'll know what they're searching for. But that's going to be fine by our opponent, and we're just going to attack in with the Warrior Lady in case it is a Sangan or a Witch set. Unfortunately for us, it is a Spy, so it's going to be a little bit annoying. Luckily, we can clear that board. We can banish with the Warrior Lady, attacking the other Spy. They've got Mirror Force, though, so that's going to be very unfortunate for us. I think saving it was actually a smart play there, because this actually deck thinned a little bit to let them get out the other Spy, and they still cleared our board. But yeah, quite unfortunate that we do lose the Infernal Queen. But I do think this was the right play to do. Yeah, the only other play really to do this turn would have been just Change of Heart their set and gone for a big aggressive push that way, which might have been the better play given we got the Fiber Jar. But I think this was also a defendable turn. And it's just like hindsight makes it clear that the Change of Heart probably would have been a little bit better. But, if the game was a little bit different, if my opponent had slightly different cards there, then who knows what it would have been. Opponent's going to switch the Spy to attack in for 1200, set 1, pass back to us. And we're going to go for a pretty big play here, given that Painful choice is pretty good. We're going to go for Painful, send 5. And I think I maybe should have Change of Hearted first before going for the Painful. I go for Painful because basically I just want to get Serpent in hand so I can go for a good Tribe here in case I need it. I figure having that setup is decent. But I feel like, it might have been better to Change of Heart their set first, because I feel like we want to go for the Change of Heart here either way to just get really aggressive with the Tribe, with whatever they got, and then just set a Fiber Jar to sort of recoup our losses from like the Mirror Force and stuff. But so I just want to, yeah, I think I definitely misordered this, because I think no matter what they give us here, we're going for the Change of Heart play either way, because they're going to give us Serpent here. So and the Change of Heart play does a fair amount of damage for almost free. Because basically what we do is we Change of Heart their set, bring out Tribe, pitch the Serpent, call Spellcaster just to clear away the Spy, because the Serpent will come back, and then get in for a bit of damage. So I think this was a misplay. I should have Change of Hearted first to see what they've got, because it is a Magician of Faith, which would have allowed us to go for a pretty big Painful play. We could have potentially sent like a Pot of Greed instead of like a Magical Scientist here, gotten back that. We could have gotten back one of the hand rips as well. There were a lot of things we could have done there if we had Change of Hearted first. So I think this was a misplay. We go for the Tribe here. This will pop the Faith as well, but we did the math out. If we kept the Spy on field, then this would have been 700 damage. If we pop both, then this is 1600 damage, so it's a bit better for us. We do have Change of Heart to follow this up with later, so, we can get aggressive next turn as well, then set the Fiber Jar and be okay with that. They've got Pot of Greed, though, so that's going to be annoying for us. They've got Snatch Steal as well. We got MST for the Snatch Steal, so we'll deal with that, but they've got Dark Hole to clear the Tribe there. They're going to attack in for 15. We'll just have to take that. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw Harpies. That is something. We're going to fire the Harpies just to sort of try and play around order in case they've got it, because they do know that we've got the change. So order is something that they could potentially set there. It is a TT. We're fine with that. We're going to go for a change on the DD War Lady there, attacking in for 1500. And then main two, we're just going to set this Fiber Jar, pass back to them. They're going to go for a Zumbira, and that's perfectly fine by us because that does cost them their normal summon. So everything will get shuffled back into the deck here, and we'll have to see what we draw. But luckily, our opponent will not be able to normal summon or set this turn. They could potentially hand rip us, which would be pretty bad, but hopefully they don't do that. And even if they do, like, we've got the initiative next turn. So this is a pretty good 5 cards to draw, Fiber Jar, all things considered. The only awkward thing is that Lily, while it is able to deal 3,400 to them, we'd have to drop down to 16, which is a little bit of risk. So we might not want to do that. They're going to set one, though, pass back to us. We draw another Fiber Jar. We're going to go for Painful here. That will go through. We're going to send a bunch of hand rips, a Breaker, and an Infernal Queen. I think those are pretty decent sends. If they want to give us a hand rip, then we can fire it, rip apart their hand a little bit. If they don't, then, we get a decent beater here to hit in. So I think that's pretty decent. They're going to give us a Comfy here. And that may indicate that they don't really have any good in hand. So, like, maybe we don't want to go for a Comfy here. But I figure we just got to go for it, see what they're working with, just so we can plan for next turn. See, they've got DD Warrior Lady, Gravekeeper Spy, Sangan, and DD Warrior Lady there. I think what we want to do is we want to send the Sangan, because we don't have a good way to deal with it. We've got Dark Hole, we got Change of Heart for, like, Spy or Warrior Lady. But, Sangan searches out card to replace itself. It gets Darkhold, so I don't necessarily want to let them keep that in hand. So, we're going to just rip that out of the hand there. And now we're just going to set the Spy, set a Darkhold. I could have gone aggressive here, bring out Lily attacking in, for instance. I could have also, well, Lily is actually a much worse play here because then I'm down to 600. They have, like, DD War Lady to hit over it. So actually that would have lost me the game. But I think that setting the Spy here is the best pick. I could have just normal summoned this out and attack, but then I lose the Spy pretty easily. Also, I think that, Spy gets us another Spy from deck. And if they get Change of Heart, it doesn't matter whether I normal summon or if I set this because, they've got 2,700 damage total with the DD War Ladies that they have in hand. They are going to bring out the DD War Lady. They've got Change of Heart, and, well, if they get Change of Heart, then they got Change of Heart. Nothing we can do about that. So that will indeed be the end of game 1. So I don't really think there was a good way to get around that Change of Heart there. Maybe if we had sent different things out the Painful, but I think sending the 3 handers plus 2 other cards is generally a good thing to do. Yeah, so I think that I think the major thing that we could have done differently that game is just structure what we did earlier in the game a bit differently. Let the IO go, gone for the Change of Heart, and gotten in for a ton of damage with the Fiber Jar to back it up. But I didn't do that, so it is what it is. And game 2, I mean, this is a really, really good hand. We're going to go for Graceful here, draw 3. We're actually going to pitch a Witch and a Lily. And the reason we do this is we got Reborn and Call the Haunted here. And I also think that all the spells and traps we drew are pretty great. So we're just going to set the TT, set a Call. If they do have Harpies, we lose the TT, which is annoying. But we do get to get back the Witch, search out a card. And that's pretty good for us. So they're going to go for Rhoda here. They're going to search out a Dawn. That would be annoying if it actually connects, but we got the TT for that. So we are going to fire that TT. They're going to go for Duo here. That's unfortunate, and they will hit the Reborn. That is also rough. We're going to pitch this Mirror Force as I feel like Ring of Destruction is a little bit better. I also could have pitched the Dark Hole instead of the Mirror Force, but Dark Hole deals with Magician of Faith, which we know they're on. So I like it a little bit better. Also deals with Spy, which we know they're on as well. Now, we're going to go for Call of the Haunted in the end phase here. And I make a play that's a little bit greedy. I go for Lily. I figure this is good because it puts them on a 2-turn clock. If they've got MST, that does ruin our day a little bit, but we got Ring to then pop whatever else they deal with or whatever else they have. And we draw a Fiber Jar, so I do think that this is fine ultimately because, like, if they do have a way to clear the Lily, we can sort of recover what we've potentially lost with the Fiber Jar. So I feel like this is ultimately good. We get kind of rewarded for this. Even though it is a little bit of a gamble. We attack in. They've got Mirror Force, so that will pop the Lily. Unfortunately, if we had get brought back the Witch, then we could have potentially gotten a search there or kept it, like, more in line. But, then again, they might have just not fired Mirror Force on Witch and hoped to, like, get out, like, a DD War Lady, but then we could have ringed the DD War Lady. So I think maybe the Witch would have been the better play there, but I got a little bit greedy, and maybe that comes back to bite me. They're going to go for Change of Heart again, so they can take the Fiber Jar, trigger the Fiber Jar on their turn. I do make a bit of a misplay here, I think, because I go for Ring to pop the Fiber Jar. I figured, like, they're already 1,000 lower than us. We might as well drop them 500 closer to lethal. But they do get the sort of initiative to attack here. So I do feel like, this Ring might not have been the best because, we're probably going to be lower than them at the end of this turn because they just need to draw a monster they can attack directly, and then they'll attack in. So I don't think I should have gone for that Ring, but yeah, it is what it is. So they are going to shuffle everything back into their deck as well. And we'll have to see who both of us draw. I mean, this hand that we got is not the best. I mean, Warrior Ladies can at least deal with some of what they got. But they're going to fire a Forceful on top of that. Go for the Reborn there. And that'll get shuffled back into the deck. They're going to bring out a Warrior Lady attack in for 1,500 here. And that's going to be pretty good. They're going to pass back to us. They don't want to play into MST if they've got a back row, which makes sense. We're just going to set a DD Warrior Lady, set in MST, pass back to them. I could have also just summoned out the Warrior Lady Crash, but then they just get to summon out a monster attack indirectly to us. So I want to sort of, provide the illusion that it could be something else. They're going to go for MST on our MST, and then they're just going to attack into our Warrior Lady. We're just going to banish that, deal 100 to them, and they're going to pass back to us. We're just going to bring out a Witch attack in for 1,100 here. We could have also brought out the Warrior Lady instead. But if they bring out a Warrior Lady to attack for the Witch, then we've got the initiative. We can bring out Warrior Lady, attack indirectly. Also, we've got Torrential Tribute, so if they bring out something else like Dawn Salute, then we can fire the TT and pop whatever they've got, as well as popping our Witch to get a search. So I think this is ultimately the better play here. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw Call of the Haunted. And I do just think about this a bit, because this could be Fiber Jar, which would be annoying. I also could just summon out Sinister Serpent and TT, just to play around, like, Gravekeeper Spy or Magician of Faith. Magician of Faith could get back, like, Force would be annoying, but, not the worst thing in the world. Also, we get Call to bring back the Witch later, so that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either. So, yeah, I think that might have been the correct play here, but if it is, like, Sangan or Witch of their own, we don't want to let them do that. So, we're just going to bring out this DD Warrior Lady attack into their set there. Unfortunately, it is Fiber Jar, so we get a bit punished for that. Because now everything gets shuffled back into the deck, and we now have no defenses against what they could potentially bring out here. So that's a bit annoying for us. But it is what it is. We played around one set of options, and unfortunately it was the other set. So main two, we're just going to set an MST, set a Ring of Destruction here. Hopefully the Ring will be able to protect us. And we set the MST to sort of mask this. We don't want them blind sniping the Ring. They're going to bring a Dawn Zalug attack in for 14. We do have the Ring for that, so we'll be able to pop that Zalug. We'll each take 14, but at least we're still ahead in life points. They're going to set two, pass back to us. We draw a Confiscation, which is pretty nice. We're going to bring out the Lily. They're going to TT that because they kind of have to. And then we're going to go for a Confiscation, see what else they're working with. They've got an IO, but we've got this MST, so we'll be able to clear that. We see that they've got a Nobleman, a Snatch Steal, and an Injection Fair Lily. Now, this is a bit of an interesting choice for us. I am very scared of Snatch Steal and Injection Fair Lily. I can just play around Nobleman pretty easily for the rest of the game. But next turn, we don't have any defenses, so if they bring out Lily, attack indirectly, we drop down to 200 life points potentially. They'll drop down to 1,900, to be fair. But at 200 life points, there are so many things that kill us, so that's very scary. So I think what I actually want to do here is I want to take the Lily and leave the Snatch, because Snatch is, there are ways to play around Snatch. Having Snatch and Knock is annoying because we can't just set monsters to play around Snatch. But we can, for instance, bring out monsters that are not really the best for them to Snatch Steal. If we draw MST, which, we've only used up the one MST on field. So if we draw MST later, or like a way to deal with that, then Snatch is a bit less threatening as well. I think Lily is the more immediate threat here, so I just want to deal with the Lily. So we are going to take the Lily. All they've got left is a Snatch and a Knock, so we're just going to set this Raigeki as a bluff, pass back to them. If they draw MST, they draw MST, but also that means that I know their entire contents of their hand. They're going to bring out an Exiled Force here, attack indirectly for 1,000, and that puts us in a little bit of a precarious spot, because we can just attack over the Exiled with this Tribe, and I do that. But, now they can Snatch Steal, and if they've got any other monster, then we do just lose the game here. So it's a bit of a risk, but then again, there's nothing we can really do to avoid that too much. I mean, we could set Infernal Queen, but then we're sort of in the same spot. If they've got, like, any good monster to bring out with it. In addition to the Exiled, we're in a really bad spot. So yeah, I think this is kind of rough for us, but we just have to hope that they don't draw a monster. Or a monster that has 1,000 or more attack, which, most monsters in the deck do, but there are probably some that don't. I mean, Graceful is probably one of the best things that you could have drawn here. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't really much we could do against that. They're going to go for Painful as well, so they can just guarantee a monster in hand. And, yep, they do indeed do that. So we're going to give them a try. I mean, it doesn't really matter here. But, yeah, they've got the MST for us set as well, so that's just going to be the end of the game. That is really unfortunate, but it's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I think there were some things we could have done differently here in these games to potentially, played around certain things. But that's how it goes sometimes. And this is something that you encounter in Vampire a lot as well, where sometimes you have to play around certain things instead of others, and you get punished for playing around the things that you were playing around instead of the things that your opponent actually had. But this wasn't the only game that we played with Infernal Queen in Dark Crisis format. So let's dive into that next match now. Okay, we got another match against Dump Truck here. We are going to dive into the rock, paper, scissors again. We do win the rock, paper, scissors this time, so that is pretty good. We won it the first match and didn't help us there, but hopefully it will help us here. And this is a pretty good opener. We got Comfy just to see what they're working with, and we will indeed take a peek. And it seems like they've got Faith, TT, Gravekeeper Spy, Harpies, and TT. It's a bit of an interesting hand here. I think what we want to do is take the Faith, because Faith can get back some very problematic things for us. We got Infernal Queen here, which can potentially solo the Gravekeeper Spies, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, they've got TT, Harpies, and Spy. We're just going to bring in Infernal Queen set 1, and the Infernal Queen goes up to 19. They've got Harpies for our MST. They're going to set 2, pass back to us, and we draw Breaker, which is pretty decent. Now, we have the read that is the Spy, because that's what we've seen in hand. But we're just going to bring out this DD Whirlity anyways. DD Whirlity will allow us to sort of play around the Spy completely. If they TT, they lose their Spy, so that's pretty good as well. So I think this is pretty decent. Unfortunately for us, they drew a Witch, so that is going to be really bad for us. They can search out a Breaker, and yeah, that's quite unfortunate. We do have Lily to get over Breaker potentially, but they're going to get in for a big damage push here. That's going to be annoying. So next turn, we're probably just going to set the Spy. They're going to bring out a DD Whirly, pass back to us. We draw a second Spy, so that's kind of rough. But we do have a third copy left in deck, so we will still be able to bring out a target. They're going to attack in to our Spy, not banish it, and we are going to bring out another Spy here. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw Graceful Charity, which is pretty decent. We're going to go for Graceful first, draw 3. Ooh, that's pretty good draws. We're going to pitch this Spy because it's not really that useful to us since the other Spies are used up. We're also going to pitch a Witch, and this may seem a bit interesting, but we get Call the Haunted, so I figure, we can go for a Witch play later. We're going to bring out this Breaker to just bait out the TT, and that will indeed bait out the TT there, so we're going to lose everything, but they're going to lose their field as well. Now we're going to set a TT and a Call. We know about the Breaker in hand, but, with this board state, we can just TT the Breaker, and then we got Call for, bring back Witch. We can bring back a lot of things with Call, so we're setting up for a really good turn next turn. They've got MST, though. Now, if they hit the Call with the MST, we are in a really, really good spot. If they hit Call with the MST, then we bring back a Witch, search out a monster here. We get TT for the Breaker if they choose to bring that out as well. And we are sitting really, really pretty. We've got Injection Fairy Lily as well, so we are feeling super, super good here. Unfortunately, they hit the TT, and that is going to be really annoying because now they got Breaker. And so we go for Call here, bring back the Witch. That gets popped, though. And we can search out Infernal Queen, but Infernal Queen's a little bit slow. It can't deal with the Breaker right now, but we're not really playing things like Kaiko or anything that can deal with the Breaker, and our own Breaker is in the grave right now. So really tough spot to be in. We draw Mirage, which is okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring out Infernal Queen, sit on that, fire Mirage, pass back to them. And I think this is ultimately okay. It's not the best thing in the world. There are some things that can kill us here. But, I think it's the best play we had available to us. They're going to set 1, set another, pass back to us. And then in standby phase, we do lose 500 for Infernal Queen. Infernal Queen also goes up to 2,900. And our opponent does a really slick play here. They fire a Ring of Destruction on the Infernal Queen. And that actually is exact lethal for us. So that is quite rough, and that is a little bit of a risk if you're playing Infernal Queen when you're really far behind. This can just turn the game into a ring victory if your opponent has that. But I think we did what we had to do there, and it just did not quite work out for us there. I also think that if our opponent had gone the other direction with the MST, not hit the TT, instead hitting the Call, we would have been favored to win that game there, actually. So kind of rough there. You know, occasionally like blind MSTing can do that for you. In general, I think that blind MSTing is not what you want to be doing, but in that case, it did actually work out for our opponent there. We draw a pretty decent opener. We're going to set the Sangan instead of the Spy. The reason for this is we got this TT here as well. So, you know, if they bring in a monster, then we can TT if we so choose, which I think is pretty good. Our opponent's going to go for a knock, though, banish our Sangan, and then MST the TT, and that's going to be really unfortunate for us. They're going to send 5 cards here. Basically, they all amount to a hand rip in some way or another. The Premat and the Reborn get back the Don Zalug to rip a card out of our hand. Duo and Force will also rip cards out of our hand, so it's kind of rough. We give them the Premat because we can clear that with the Harpies next turn. This will give them like 2 potential summons here, which is annoying because they'll be able to get in a fair amount of damage. We do have Dark Hole, and as long as they don't rip Dark Hole with the Zalug, I feel like we're in a really, really good spot here, no matter what else they hit. So they're going to go for the Zalug hit, and they do hit the Dark Hole, so that is really unfortunate for us. They're going to attack in for 34 as well. We draw Sinister Sherman, which is pretty good. We're going to just go for the Harpies now to clear the Dawn, which is why we gave them the Premat, because if they did, in fact, hit the Dark Hole, which they did, then at least we have backup for that. And we're just going to set this Spy pass back to our opponent. They've got Change of Heart, though, and that is just going to be the end of the game, because Change of Heart plus Lily is going to be it. I mean, if we had kept the Dark Hole there, if they hadn't hit that, then it's probably still would have been the end of the game, because they could have Change of Hearted, got Graveyard Spy, flipped it up, gotten 2,400 damage on field. But they didn't have another monster in hand, so, you know, actually wouldn't have been game that turn. But they might not have gone for the change there. We also probably would have summoned out Warrior Lady as opposed to setting the Spy if we had kept the Dark Hole. So, I mean, that's if we still had the Warrior Lady. But, you know, who's to say what would have happened if they hadn't hit the Dark Hole? Yeah, pretty rough, though, for us there. So, what are my thoughts on Infernal Queen in this format? And, you know, do I think that Infernal Queen errata actually makes this format different enough from Vampire to sort of merit its own exploration? And the answer to that question is no. I think Infernal Queen is actually... it's a really tempting card, but I also don't think it's really the best in this format. This format is very similar in pace to Vampire format, where they're both very, very aggressive. Tempo matters a lot. And Infernal Queen Archfiend is a really, really big monster if you give it a couple turns. But the first turn you summon it out, it doesn't really do anything on field. It can't hit over anything. And your opponent just can play around it on their turn. So it's not really as proactive as it may seem. And, you know, if it sticks around for a while, it's really good. But there's so many ways to out monsters in this format that I just don't really see Infernal Queen making too big of a splash here. Maybe as a one-of tech in some sort of like Vampire control lists. But I think that like overall this format's just still basically Vampire format, and thus isn't really worth covering beyond this video. But let me know what you think of the Infernal Queen Archfiend's original effect here, and whether you think it actually is more impactful in the format than I'm giving it credit for, down in the comments below. I always look forward to discussing these sorts of things with y'all. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please do subscribe to the channel. It really helps out a lot. I'd really like to reach 1,200 subscribers by the end of the month, which, you know, we're already halfway through, so maybe it's a bit of a reach, but I feel like it would be a really cool milestone to reach here. Also, you know, if you want to support me directly, I do have a Patreon. So big shout outs to my patrons, Bren Donker, Rinswin, GMYFS, and Porkchop It really, really means a lot to me that you support me in this way, and it really motivates me to make even more videos in the future. But I hope that you enjoyed this video as always. Don't worry, we will be getting back to regular format coverage relatively soon. But we still got a couple more of these hypothetical formats to go through before we get into that. So I hope that you all enjoy this sort of stuff. But if you don't, you know, there is more of that standard good stuff that we'll be covering on the way, probably starting around next week. But until then, we'll have these sorts of fun mini explorations to look forward to. But I hope that you enjoyed as always. And until next time, I've been Ben for YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.